My name is Dario Voss, and I have spent 11 years doing a job that mostly involves standing very still next to a dog. That was the whole of it that day too, until the bulkheads came down. Corvale Station sits at the seam between 3 trade lanes, and Transfer Concourse 9 is where everybody waits who doesn't have clearance to wait anywhere nicer. The benches are bolted steel. The lighting is the flat gray-white that never changes whether it's ship morning or ship night. And the air always smells faintly of recycled coolant and whatever 300 species of traveler tracked in on their boots. I was there with Rook, my Belgian Malinois, escorting a sealed manifest crate that outranked both of us. The kind of cargo where you don't ask questions, you just make sure nobody touches it before the right person signs for it. Rook lay across my boots with his chin on his paws, ears loose, the way he does when nothing in a room has earned his attention yet. He had been awake for 6 hours and bored for 5 of them. Every so often some transient kid would drift close, drawn by the harness and the calm brown eyes, and I'd give the small head shake that means, "Look, don't touch," and Rook wouldn't so much as lift his head to acknowledge he'd been the subject of interest at all. He has that kind of confidence. It isn't trained into a dog. You either get one built that way or you don't. The Thren delegation came in 20 minutes before the alarm. 4 diplomats in high gray collars, and behind them, on a lead of braided cable, their Kessel. I had read about Kessel in a briefing packet once, and skimmed past it. Reading about one and standing 8 meters from one are different educations. It stood shoulder high to the tallest Thren, all ridged plate and slow-blinking triple eyes, built like something that used to hunt things my size for a living. Its handler kept the cable taut. The Thren party gave it a wide, respectful berth, the way you'd walk around a loaded weapon that was technically safe. Rook lifted his head when they entered, watched the Kessel for the length of 3 breaths, and put his chin back down. That was the whole of his opinion. The alarm hit at 14:06 station time. No warning tone first, just the full klaxon and the concourse doors slamming into their frames, hard enough that I felt it in my molars. Red strobe lighting, a automated voice announcing a Class 2 biological contaminant flag, and a full lockdown. All personnel to remain stationary. Security response inbound. I want to be clear about what that means to the people in that room. It meant the 4 of us, me, the Thren delegation, a Concord customs officer, and a scatter of civilian transients, were sealed in a 40 by 60 compartment with an alien war beast and no idea, for the first several minutes, whether the flag was real. The Thren diplomats did not scream. Their kind doesn't, from what I've seen. But their collars flared pale at the edges, some biological tell I didn't know the meaning of, and they drew in tight around each other, backs to the far wall, putting distance between themselves and the door. The customs officer went for his sidearm, and I put a hand up before he cleared the holster. Last thing that room needed was a human drawing a weapon inside a sealed compartment full of a species we'd fought a short, ugly border conflict with 11 years back. Old enough that most people had stopped mentioning it. Not old enough that a Thren delegation locked in a room with human security wouldn't remember it in their bones. The Kessel's handler lost the cable's slack. The beast's plates rose along its spine, a slow mechanical unfolding, and a sound came out of its chest that wasn't quite a growl. Lower than that, felt more than heard, through the floor. One of the civilian transients near the door started crying without seeming to notice she was doing it. The customs officer's hand was shaking against his still holstered sidearm. Nobody in that compartment had decided yet whether the alarm was real, and in the absence of an answer, every instinct in the room defaulted to the worst one available. I ran the arithmetic the way you do when your training takes over, before your fear can. 40 by 60 compartment, 6 sealed exits, all of them locked. 1 armed customs officer, with steadier nerves needed than he currently had. 1 alien war beast, reading the room's fear as confirmation that fear was owed. And my dog, who I could not currently see doing anything useful about any of it. Rook stood up. He didn't bark. He didn't plant himself between me and the room, didn't bristle, Didn't do any of the things a nervous dog does. He walked to the center of the compartment, in plain view of everyone, and sat down. Just sat, spine straight, ears up, tail still, looking at the Kessel the way you'd look at a large piece of furniture you were mildly curious about. "Rook here," I said, quiet, more habit than command. He didn't come. First time in 6 years he'd ignored a recall. I let it stand. My dog does not do things without a reason, and I have learned not to argue with the reason before I understand it. For maybe 40 seconds nothing changed. The klaxon kept cycling. The Thren kept their backs to the wall. The Kessel's plates stayed high, its handler still fighting the cable. Then the Kessel stopped. Its spine plates came down first, one ripple at a time, like a held breath finally let go. Its head lowered. Not in submission, I don't think. More the way a wolf will drop its guard around something it has decided, on some old instinctive ledger, does not need watching. It settled onto its haunches 4 meters from Rook, and simply looked at him, both animals still, both unbothered, while every intelligent being in the room slowly registered what had just happened. One of the Thren diplomats said something low to the others in their own language. I caught only the cadence of it, not fear anymore. Something closer to a question being answered. The eldest of them, a diplomat with paler gray collar flesh than the rest, stepped away from the wall, slowly, not toward me, toward the 2 animals sitting 4 meters apart in the middle of the room, ignoring the alarm entirely. "Your hound," she said, in careful trade standard, "has already decided this is nothing." "He does that," I said. "Ours does not decide easily." She watched the Kessel a moment longer. "It has decided also. That is rarer." I didn't have a good answer for that, so I gave her the only honest one. "He's not smarter than your animal. He's just done this before. Loud room, closed door, everybody afraid of something that hasn't happened yet. He waits to see if it happens. And if it happens? Then you'll know. He won't be sitting." She looked at Rook a while longer, and something in her collar flesh eased that I understood without needing the biology explained to me. The all clear came at 14:19, 13 minutes, door to door. A misflagged filtration sensor 2 decks up, nothing biological, nothing that had ever threatened the room. The bulkheads retracted with the same violent clang they'd slammed shut with, and the klaxon cut mid-cycle, leaving the kind of ringing silence a loud room leaves behind it. The Kessel's handler exhaled like he'd been holding it the whole 13 minutes, which he probably had. The customs officer sat down hard on a bench and didn't get up right away. The civilian transients started talking too fast and too loud, the way people do once the fear has somewhere to go. Rook got up, walked back to me, and lay back down across my boots, chin on his paws, like none of it had required anything of him at all. The eldest diplomat paused at the door on her way out with the rest of her delegation. She looked at Rook one more time. "On our world," she said, "we have an old measure, not of courage, of a mind that will not be moved by noise it has already judged unimportant. We do not have a word for it in your language. We call the ones who have it the unhurried. We just call it a good dog," I said. She almost smiled. I think it was a smile, on a face built differently than mine. Perhaps they are the same word. Then she was gone, back into the concourse traffic, her Kessel padding beside her on a loose cable now, no longer needing to be held tight. I filed the incident report that evening the way I file all of them, flat, factual, no editorializing. Bulkhead lockdown, false biological flag, 13 minutes, no injuries, no property damage. I did not write down the part about the Kessel sitting, or the diplomat's word for it, because there's no box on the form for that, and because some things you carry out of a room instead of writing down. Rook was asleep before we reached the barracks corridor, worn out from an afternoon of doing, by his own accounting, absolutely nothing.